Good evening, everyone. I'm Connie Gonzalez, the Director of Strategy and Community Relations at Brooks. Welcome to our very first installment of our Ask Brooks series. The Ask Brooks series is bringing community leaders together to answer your questions. For the next hour, we'll be taking your questions regarding any COVID-19 related questions and specifically related to our schools. Tonight, we're bringing together our local superintendents, the two superintendents that feed into the Brooks campus, San Antonio Independent School District Superintendent, Mr. Pedro Martinez, and East Central Independent School District Superintendent, Mr. Roland Toscano. Also with us, we have Brooks President and CEO, Mr. Leo Gomez, who will be helping us to moderate today's conversations. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Likewise.
Before we get started, I would like to go over a few housekeeping items so you know how to successfully participate in today's event. At any time, you can submit your questions to our speakers. To do so, just simply submit your questions into this live stream. And as time allows, our speakers will address as many questions as we can. And if we are not able to get to all of those questions, we'll do our best to reach out following this production. We will be recording this and we will share the link after the event. Also, if you have any friends, family members that are not able to tune in at this moment, this will also be airing on the City of San Antonio's TVSA on Sunday at 7 p.m. And so you can tune in or let your family members know that they can watch them. And so now that we've gotten the housekeeping items out of the way, I'm going to hand it off to our President and CEO, Mr. Leo Gomez, to get us started.
Thank you, Connie. And I really want to say that we appreciate everybody tuning in and watching here today. It's important that we do our best to make sure that the Brooks community understands some of what is going on within our community and sometimes some of what is not going on. And in this case, as Connie pointed out, our topic regarding COVID-19 and our schools is something of great importance to the families throughout our community and our nation. We want to make sure that the families on the Brooks campus and the surrounding area are as well informed as they can be. And so with that, I want to add my thank you to Pedro Martinez of SISD and Roland Toscano of East Central ISD, our two superintendents that are joining us here today. We really appreciate them joining us. Gracias, Pedro. Gracias, Roland. We really appreciate you doing that. Our board appreciates it. Our tenants, our property owners, our employers, and our families that live, again, not just on the Brooks campus, but in the area around Brooks. It's the Brooks region, as we refer to it. And for everybody's information, the Brooks region really feeds into these two principal school districts, SAISD and East Central. So even on the Brooks campus, we have residents and families that feed either into an SISD school or an East Central school. And we're very proud of that, very proud of these two school districts and what they've been accomplishing, especially over the last couple of years, academically and otherwise. And we'll hear about other things here today. Let me also say that we are proud to have, as of this year, 3 high schools on the Brooks campus, starting with the Cass Med High School, Pedro of SISD. We're incredibly proud of having those medical geared students joining us at the high school level in an environment that has a hospital and clinics on the Brooks campus, along with the UIW Medical School. And so we're thrilled to have those students on. And of course, Brooks Academy and Compass Rose. And then we have an apartment community or two, Roland, that feeds into East Central and certainly the neighborhood directly to the south of us. So everybody, again, thanks for joining us. Pedro and Roland, thank you for joining us. Let's get right into this. I'd like to start by making sure that everybody understands where we stand today in terms of in-person classes or remote learning for each of the school districts. So Roland, if you don't mind, I'm going to start with you. Where is East Central in that regard today?
So we started August 17th remote only. We went through that week standing up our remote instructional platform, providing help desk and tech support for our teachers and staff, as well as our students and families, ensuring that everybody had connectivity and that everybody's needs were met to kick off this year of learning. This second week, we began to introduce very small groups of students who have a wide range of disabilities and needs that we felt like Dr. Wu were more at risk staying at home, not being served than in our buildings. And so this week we introduced a few students at each campus and began to serve them. And throughout this week and next week, we're working with a small number of families who we've been unable to get connected because of either where they live or because of their circumstances. And we've beginning to introduce them into what we're calling safe learning zones where they have everything that they need to include the support for accessing remote instruction. And again, while prioritizing risk mitigation. And so we're happy to report that we're up to about 9,700 students enrolled and fully engaged. We ended the year just under 10,200. So we're very pleased that in a short week and a half, we've been able to engage the vast majority of those, and we continue to attempt to engage the remainder of those families.
Well, thank you, Roland. Appreciate that. Pedro, how about you and SISD? Where are we today?
Sure. So we've implemented a multi-level system that is aligned with San Antonio Metro Health. So we started in the red for this month. So we started 100% remote. We're finishing our second week of school. I want to thank all of our families because they were very patient with us, but we're seeing a lot of success, especially with our older children logging on and being engaged. We are seeing some challenges with younger children. And so this leads us to where we're at today. So we had a parent town hall, and I had Dr. Wu with me, the head of Metro Health, who shared with us we have now reached the yellow level because our positivity testing rate has been declining and is now at 9.9%. It had been 21% not too long ago. This is the percent of individuals that are taking the COVID virus test and testing positive. And so we want that percent to be as low as possible. We had already hit other metrics because we've been improving in the community. So now that we're in the yellow, we're sharing with parents that we're going to begin to have phases of children coming in for in-person instruction starting September 8th, the day after Labor Day. And we're going to start with the first phase of 10%. And the children we're going to really focus on are children that might be special needs children, children that are struggling right now, children that are young ages for pre-K to second grade, because like I said, that's what we're seeing. Some of the biggest challenges of just children. Parents are struggling just to ensure that the children are logging on. And so we want to prioritize those students. And then the goal is in 2 weeks after that, we'll bring in a second phase of 10%. And then we'll do a town hall before that to give and have Dr. Wu on again to let us know where we're at in terms of our health metrics. What we're working towards is the next level, which is the green level. And for that, parents need to look for the positivity testing rate to go down below 5%. We haven't been at that level since about April. But the trend is very optimistic. And then once we get into the green level, any parent who's declared who wants to come in person will be able to meet their needs at that time.
Thank you, Pedro. And Pedro, one of the first parents that we heard from has a son in second grade at Mission Academy, just down Presa from Brooks. And he tells us that he's having to spend a lot of time coming home from work to make sure that his son is logged online on time. And I'm wondering, what advice do you have for this gentleman to help make sure, what resources are there, or who can he talk to help him figure out a better way to make sure that his second grader is logging on time from home?
It's a challenge for all of our parents of young children. I myself have a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old, and it is a lot of monitoring for us also. But here's what I would give as advice to all of our parents. So first of all, take advantage of all the resources we have for you on our website. You can go right on and you can, there's a tab there just for parent resources. And so we have training videos and we have actually training classes now. We're using a learning management system called Canvas. It's actually very robust. Our teachers are really liking it. And so there's it's new for all of us, so including for our parents. So Canvas itself, you can actually put it on your phone, and it gives you indicators about assignments. Teachers can connect with you directly about any issues that maybe your child is having. And then, of course, I think my other advice is just talk to your teacher. Have a direct connection with your teacher. What we've asked our teachers to do during these first few weeks is to ease the children in. We do have a full schedule, but we are, one of the things I'm sharing with parents is we want to ease you in the first few weeks because we know it is a big shift. It is a big shift, and especially for the younger children.
Gracias, Pedro. Let me turn it to something that may be a little bit lighthearted, Roland, but on the other hand, it's serious stuff, and that's fall sports. Talk to us about fall sports and what that's going to look like at East Central.
Well, there's certainly a bunch of uncertainty around that. We all know the importance of extra and co-curricular activities in the education of the whole child. And so, while academics is all of our priority, at a time when we've got to prioritize our ability to connect with kids, we have been preparing for reintroduction of our UIL sports programs. In fact, this week we did re-engage students in strength and conditioning outside the school day, very similar to what we attempted to do on a couple of different occasions over the summer, in hopes of gradually getting to a place where actual competitions could occur. Keeping in mind that we're focused on using Metro Health data as a guide and working closely with the UIL as well as our district partners that we compete against. So,
Roland, how important is that measure of positivity rating at 5% or lower, like Pedro just mentioned?
Yeah, it's critical. I know there's a lot of discourse around the validity of the data. I know that that positivity rate is indicative of the folks who felt as if they had symptoms and needed to be tested, and not necessarily indicative of all of the citizens of Bexar County being tested. When we look at our zip code data, across the county, as well as in our community, our 4 zip codes are at 3, 1%, and 1% positivity rate with respect to the population. And so, nonetheless, we are using Metro Health's data to determine what is appropriate very safely and very conservatively in terms of reintroduction to students into our buildings. And keeping in mind that as we bring students back into our buildings, we've got to adhere to risk mitigation protocols consistently, faithfully, for staff and students. And so we do on the horizon have concerns about reaching that 50% enrollment threshold while we still have COVID-19 among us, because that is the threshold that we have determined is the maximum number of students we can have in our buildings and still guarantee risk mitigation protocols being consistently implemented.
Thank you, Roland. Thank you. Pedro, how about you? What would you add regarding fall sports and what that's going to be looking like at SISD? Is there anything significantly different from what we just heard from Roland?
Yeah, so we're being very cautious in our district. So in the red and in the yellow level that we're in, we are limiting any activities right now for sports or extracurriculars in general. As we start approaching the green, and right now our trends are looking very, very good. And I know the data is not perfect, but these are the same data points that are being used across the country, and other countries in the world have used them. And so, say what you say, I've been studying multiple districts here in the U.S. and around the world, and what I see is this common pattern of once you start seeing trends, where new cases are going in a downward trend, where you're seeing doubling time being that it takes a long time for cases to double in any area, as well as the positivity testing rate, that those are the best indicators around just the slowness of the spread. And so for us in the yellow and in the red, we're going to be very limited. I am cautiously optimistic that we could start seeing going into the green level early in the fall, and that's when we will start our strength and conditioning, our practicing, so that our children can participate in sports. And then there, as Roland said, we'll really work closely with Metro Health and with the UIL to see what sports will be allowed at the beginning of once we get to that level.
Okay. Well, whenever we get to it in terms of football, whether it's this fall or next year, whenever, I'm wondering, is there a game of the year between an East Central high school and an SISD high school that we all should be aware of? Or is there more than one?
Well, unfortunately, we're in different districts.
Yeah.
And haven't had the pleasure of playing against one another in several years. But we've shared a long history of competition with some of our friends from SAISD. Brackenridge and Highlands. I mean, some big time battles over the years, and maybe one of these days that could be resurrected.
Absolutely.
Well, I for one would love that. But let me jump to something serious regarding just the remote learning capabilities of the school districts and such. Roland, we actually got a comment submitted by one of our own employees at Brooks, and she was sharing with us how smoothly it went in terms of the distribution of the devices and the books and the registration online, and how there's always a human being available on the phone to call. It's not like other organizations where you get the voicemail when it's critical like this. So any response to that, or any concerns that you've had, or was it all as smooth as we seem to have submitted to us by this one person?
Well, I greatly appreciate that feedback. That was our intent, and we've been working really hard to make sure that we had access in real time to people to assist our parents and their children with connectivity. But we haven't always hit the mark. We've had some hiccups along the way, but I do feel like in a week and a half we've stood up something that has given us the best opportunity. We've set ourselves up to be able to maneuver along the way. We've communicated and received feedback since the spring to ensure that we were able to respond to the needs of parents and their wishes for remote learning when compared to what they experienced in the spring. We also feel like we've responded to the needs teachers had to ensure that they could manage remote instruction and subsequently remote and face-to-face instruction, and that they had the tools and the resources to allow them to do that seamlessly. And while we've got a long way to go and we're learning more every day, we're very pleased that the plans that we made over the course of the spring and the summer seem to have set us up for best case scenario among a very unusual situation.
Well, thanks, Roland. And both of you know a lot better than I do, what the challenges have been with broadband and internet service in our neighborhoods in the Brooks region, and the families, households that feed into your school districts. Pedro, can you elaborate on that a bit, what those challenges have been like and what the school district has done to overcome them to the extent we can?
Sure. So, for decades, many of our neighborhoods just had not had the infrastructure to access the internet, and many of our families just didn't have devices. One data point that I'll give you is prior to COVID, this was right before Christmas break, we got a grant, a national grant, where we were able to offer a data plan or a cell phone to every high school student in our district, just based on whoever needed one. And we had high schools where 70% of the students did not have a phone or a data plan. And so that was before COVID. And even after that, we had once COVID hit, we had to distribute over 40,000 devices. So we have our enrollments just under 49,000, and we had to distribute thousands and thousands of hotspots. And I'll tell you, one of the challenges and frustrations is that hotspots are a good short-term solution, but the reality is that because the infrastructure is not in the ground or in the air in many of the neighborhoods, the hotspots are not reliable always, especially when you have multiple children or multiple devices accessing the internet. And so one of the exciting things we've done is we partner with the city, and we are leveraging our infrastructure as well as the city's infrastructure, and the city's using some of their federal dollars they got from the CARE Act and investing in equipment, and then we've agreed to maintain it. But we're going to be leveraging, for example, the traffic lights that the city uses. I didn't know this, but traffic lights are actually Wi-Fi hubs, and so I didn't know that, as well as the infrastructure of CPS Energy, the city, as well as our infrastructure. And so what I tell our students is that, and so as we speak, we're actually going to neighborhoods now and taking hotspots and giving them routers that are going to be much stronger and even have higher speeds of internet access. And what I was telling the children is, look, I can't get you Netflix. That's the federal government doesn't allow me to do that, but I can get you access to all of our digital applications. And so that's what's happening now. As we speak, we're starting on the west side in this month of September, and then we're going to keep moving across all the neighborhoods in San Antonio ISD.
Roland, you want to take up that topic? Anything else to share there with regard to your district?
Yeah, so the program that Pedro's talking about is fantastic. unfortunately, we're not part of the initial phase of the project, but perhaps in subsequent phases. But we also don't have the same depth of need. We're at about 50% of our households that we needed to provide devices and or hotspots for. Fortunately, we're able to provide enough devices, Chromebooks, if you will, for every family. But like Pedro said, we're struggling with hotspots, particularly when there are multiple children in the household, as well as cell service, which the hotspots require, is intermittent in some areas of our district. We have been able to work with Spectrum and AT&T to connect many families at very discounted rates based on their income. Because we have a CEP program in all of our K through 8 campuses, all students in those campuses qualify for that discounted rate. I believe it's as low as $5 a month. And still for some, that's not adequate. And so, as I mentioned earlier, those are the ones that we're bringing into safe learning zones. Those are the ones that we're beginning to work with local businesses and local churches, because in some cases the families are still not comfortable sending their kids into schools, but they may be comfortable sending them to facilities at their local church or facilities in a nearby place of business, perhaps. And at this point, all we want to do is get kids connected in a safe place where they can establish a daily routine. Parents or proctors, if you will, don't have to provide instruction. These are robust, live, synchronous teaching and learning platforms. So if we can get them somewhere where they feel safe and they can get connected and they can establish a daily routine, we believe that we can make academic progress while we're waiting for the time when it is safe to get them all into our buildings.
Yeah. So to be clear, when you refer to safe learning zones, you're not referring to just within a school or the school district. You're referring to other assets in the community.
That's correct.
Yeah. And Pedro, in your case, in a worst case scenario, when a student or family can't find some way to connect, what are their options at SAISD?
Well, the first thing I would say, Leo, is again, we have devices and hotspots for everybody. And so okay. I don't ever want normally to go without. We've actually had great partners, including the Spurs organization, who opened up their parking lots and the Wi-Fi in their parking lots. And so we have those kind of partnerships, but generally, like I said, I want every family to know that all of our school buildings are open. They're there, and you can call and you can go and pick up a device, pick up a hotspot. All we need is just for your child to be registered in our district.
Okay. Gracias. Let me move over to. I can imagine the needs of students throughout the schools beyond academics. Emotional, counseling needs, nursing needs, etc. The various needs that students have in your schools. How are you addressing that from your respective school districts? Whichever one of you wants to address it first.
Well, thank you for asking that question. We have an EC Cares program that really tracks and monitors students who have experienced any form of trauma. And we're over 1,000 students in that program, which is over 10% of our enrollment, are students who have experienced trauma. If you're familiar with ACEs scores, these are students that have ACEs scores that approach the very at-risk category. And what we found out in the spring when we closed is that a subset of those students were really struggling for a host of reasons. So much so that we were finding ourselves routinely making home visits to support them with a wide range of wraparound services in their homes that we were no longer able to provide at school, which they were accustomed to. So in addition to what I've already mentioned, there is a subset of students in our district, a subset of the EC Care students that quite frankly are in danger in their environment if it persists without them being able to come to our facilities and be provided the services and the resources and support that they absolutely need before they could ever begin to academically achieve. And so that is also part of our reintroduction plan the week prior to the 8th. It's a small number of students, again, spread across the district. But we feel like we've got to phase in students before September 8th. All of these would be well within the 10% recommendations that Dr. Wu had shared with us earlier.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Roland. And Pedro, how many students in SISD? And I can imagine the magnitude of that challenge for you all as well, if I may call it a challenge.
Yeah, so we're just under 49,000 students, and we've seen a significant need for counseling and therapy. And so we've been providing telecounseling services and teletherapy services. We have our social workers that are working directly with families and connecting them to resources. The need has gotten so large that we already had a strong partnership with communities and schools who provide social workers and counselors to about 20% of our campuses, and we're increasing that by almost 50%. So we're hoping to get to a third of our campuses. Even that's still not enough. And so these are needs that are real. We're seeing more families just being pressured by either they're losing their jobs, they've lost their jobs, and just the emotional toll that this virus has hit. And one of the things that I would tell all of our business community, this virus and the recession that it has caused is probably the cruelest I've ever seen when it comes to how it affects the poor. Because many of our professional staff, they've been able to work from home, they've been able to keep their jobs. In some industries have even grown during this process because of all the online retail that's happening. But in terms of our restaurants, our hotels, that industry has been shattered. And guess who are the workers of those industries? A lot of them are the parents in my district. And so again, this has just been a very cruel recession for those families. And of course, we're seeing the pressure that they're going through. So we're working with the city, we're working with communities and schools. We're getting them resources. We see families that get the virus, and we actually work with the city and nonprofits to get them gift cards and deliver food to their house. And so that's something, again, that I think as a community, all of us just need to be aware of, that these needs are growing and they're out there.
I appreciate y'all sharing that for us, and I really appreciate the compassion with which your school districts are managing through that in both school districts. Let me try to take us back a few months, because clearly this crisis started before the end of last school year. And so are there any highlights from the way the school district ended that perhaps are points of joy or pride in what happened for certain students or just student bodies as you wrapped up this last school year? Pedro, you want to go first?
Okay.
Sure. So, I mean, I just was very proud of my team. We served over 2 million meals in between the spring break through the summer. And, we went from 7 feeding sites to almost 30. And then it wasn't enough, so we actually created a delivery stop. So we used our buses and our bus drivers, and we called it SISD Eats, like Uber Eats. We had over 60 delivery sites, and there's a beautiful picture of a child. I had a sign waiting for our bus to arrive, just thanking and saying, God bless you and thank you for what you're doing for us. And of course, our team just, went out of our way to distribute devices to all the families who need them, to distribute hotspots. And our teachers, I'll tell you, their biggest frustration was they wanted to help. They wanted to do more. They actually wanted to visit the children at home because they missed them so much. And so as we started the new school year, we were training our teachers, because we've implemented a new robust system called Canvas, which our teachers love, by the way. And I think our parents, as you get to know, and you're really going to see how strong it is. We had our teachers, 70% of them came before their contract started to get trained. They could not wait because they wanted to make sure they supported our children. So again, I'm very proud and I'm very proud of our community, how it's coming together.
Pedro, on that note, is there a story of a particular student you want to help make sure everybody is aware of? Somebody who's an example that graduated in May in spite of this crisis and now is getting ready to start college somewhere you want to tell us about?
Yeah, so I have quite a few of them, but one of them that really tugged at my heart was we had a young lady, Maria Garcia, who this is my first MIT student. And so she's one of 10 students in the world that has gotten a full ride to MIT. And we're talking about a single mom. She's the oldest. She has a couple brothers at one at Rhodes and one at Lanier High School. She lives on the south side near Burbank. And just a family that, all the challenges you can imagine, they're against them, all the challenges. And this young lady, her dream was to be an engineer since middle school. And our staff worked with her and the family. The family struggled, especially during COVID, because There was a time where they were struggling just with the basics of food and other necessities, and our staff pulled together. And I got a chance to meet her even before COVID, and I was just urging her on to not give up on her dreams. So as we speak, she's on her way to MIT, and we have students going to Stanford, we have students going to here at Trinity, of course, our wonderful universities of UTSA and Texas A&M San Antonio, and of course the Alamo College is a great partner. But I'll tell you, one of the biggest challenges that I've seen is making sure that our students continue just keep their dreams. And so we're really working hard to make sure they don't give up on that, because COVID just dominated us so much.
Well, congratulations to her and all your other graduates that have succeeded as they have. And thank you to you and your team, the teachers, your support staff, everybody who made that possible for them as they wrapped up the year in a challenging time compared to other times. So gracias. But Roland, how about you? How did you all end the year, and anything you want to share with us there?
You know, adversity doesn't build character, it reveals it. And something that I realized through this circumstance, like Pedro described, is how everybody in the organization stepped up to respond in a really quick time frame to an unforeseeable circumstance, from child nutrition to our teachers, to our curriculum team that stood up remote learning choice boards in less than a week, so that our teachers could connect with students, to our campus administrators and instructional leadership teams that stood up instructional packets for every single content area, every single grade level, and produced them so that we could distribute them for families who were going to struggle with connectivity or preferred that option, to our bus drivers and custodial staff who worked relentlessly to support the needs of students as it relates to delivering meals, into the sanitization and disinfection needs of all of our facilities. It was just amazing. And then most of all, our students and our families were just gracious. They were patient. They were understanding. They gave such profound input that informed our work. And ultimately, one of the things that I think I was most proud of is, you know, it was a difficult circumstance for all of us to see that our seniors lost so much of their spring. And there was so many things that they'd worked so hard for that were left unable to experience. And so graduations were something that fell on our shoulders to try and appropriately honor and celebrate them as a community, given the constraints. And, you know, our senior class came together with our senior sponsors and proposed to our campus administration a drive-by curbside graduation that was somewhat parade style, but adhered to all risk mitigation. We were able to stream it on Facebook Live. Every child was allowed to walk the stage, if you will, with their family present. And I mean, there were tears, there was joy. I mean, it was a 7-hour ceremony that we normally do in an hour and 45 minutes. But I tell you what, we may not be able to go back to anything else. And so just for our community to come together and pull that off really revealed the character of our staff and our students and our community. And I couldn't be more proud. And I could go on and on about the individual accomplishments of our students and what they were still able to achieve despite being shut down since March. It was just amazing.
Well, I'll tell you, I know the work of Brooks and the challenges we had, and I can't even imagine the challenges that you two and your respective teams faced in making sure your customer, whether it's the student or the parent or their eventual employers or where they go on to from high school, had to really deal with in order to provide as good an experience as possible for those that wrapped up their K-12 education this last May. And again, kudos to you all and your teams. Thank you very much. Let me, a topic that's very near and dear to me and our board and our staff, and it's something that we address in our vision and our mission and what we try to accomplish at Brooks. You know, at the end of the day, we want to make sure we're creating jobs, good paying jobs, and we strive to make sure that they're jobs that can be filled by the parents and the families that live around Brooks. And I say that to come to this word, poverty. Right? Poverty is something that unfortunately is apparent in some of our surrounding neighborhoods. In some of them, the poverty level is literally 20% plus prior to the COVID crisis. So I can imagine what it's doing to some of our neighborhoods today. What could we at Brooks do? So for example, we have a major employer that's completing its huge plant. Someday they will hire 1,000+ people, but starting this fall, they will be hiring a few hundred people of those 1,000 starting this fall. What might we be able to do in conjunction with either of the school districts to connect parents from the school districts to those jobs at Cuisine Solutions? Connie's going to be, we're coordinating job fairs with the plant, and I would hope that we can work together to make sure the families in our school districts here have the opportunity to take those jobs. Either one of you want to jump in on that?
Well, my immediate thought, Leo, is that, like our students, they need to be academically prepared, but they need to be employable. And as we explore what employability means, we realize that they have to have credentials that give them access to, high demand employment that matches their interest and their skills. And so with regard to their parents, as we think about the kinds of positions and the opportunities that are going to be available by this employer that you're speaking about, could we work together to provide some continuing education opportunities so that families who may want to pursue those job opportunities could pick up some of those skills and or credentials in advance on the runway period to, competing for those positions. And I would be very interested in working together on any kind of undertaking like that. And I think that our community would be very responsive.
Well, thanks for that.
And, similar here, Leo. I mean, we have adult ed programs that are pretty large, and one of the things we see as a challenge in our community is many adults who don't have even a high school diploma or a GED, and so we would love to partner to get more of our parents, and when we're actually we partner with Alamo Colleges as well to try to get them certifications. And so I think one of the things that we would love to do is just to partner with any employers that you have, so that we can work with, and we have several hundred of adults and young adults that are trying to come back and get their education. And what I would love is to put them in some kind of training program. We also have a program with the Alamo Colleges in the east side of our district at the Pfeiffer building, where we have training programs as well. So similar to Roland, I would love to find ways to partner with you as well as even the Alamo Colleges and connect many of our parents with more education if they need them, and we can provide that, including a GED or high school diploma, but as well as training programs that can help them with these employers. And I think, one of the things that I really love about Brook City Base and your leadership, Leo, is that, bringing these big employers. I mean, one of the things that I think that we really have to work as a community is how do we bring these employers with good paying jobs? Because again, every time we get hit with a recession, just when families think that they're moving ahead, this hits them, and then they go 3 steps backwards. And at the end of the day, we have to educate our families, and we got to help them get trained and get these good paying jobs.
Well, thank you, Pedro. Cuisine Solutions is a food manufacturing company. Now, they will have plenty of skilled maintenance technician positions. Honestly, they're already beginning to hire those. And then there's the line that needs to be hired. And what I love about Cuisine Solutions is they have committed to the living wage, and they have a great healthcare package. And so these are jobs for folks that don't necessarily need to have degrees in engineering, but they do need some basic credentials and some basic, credentials is what they need to get in there. And we're literally talking about hundreds of jobs that ultimately will be a plant that will employ over 1,000 people. And so I look forward to working with you all to figure out how we partner in that way. I know the city and the county has CARES Act money that they're dedicating that to right now. And the city council has adopted a ballot initiative that's going to be considered by the voters in November regarding workforce training and such. But the closer the partnerships can be right in the Brooks region, and we can work with you all and the Alamo Colleges and others to do that, I certainly look forward to doing that. Again, what I want to do is make sure that if we're creating jobs at Brooks, as many of the families and parents of your students in the surrounding neighborhoods as possible have a real good shot at getting those jobs. By the way, that's one employer. And I'm rather optimistic that right now that sometime between now and December, we'll be announcing another major employer that may start hiring before the holidays as well. And so I trust we can work together to make sure we do what we can so those employers end up hiring families or people from our surrounding neighborhoods and not just from anywhere else. Okay. So deal. We'll work with you all on that. Pedro, talking about ballot initiatives. I understand you have a little bond package that's going to be before the voters in November. In all sincerity, I mean that's $1 billion package, if I read correctly. That's a major investment. It's the kind of vision or the courage to put a bond package on the ballot, the size that San Antonio is not quite used to. So tell us about that and tell us why now.
Yeah, so one of the things that we have done is we've been very blessed by our community. I started in 2015. We had the either the craziness or the courage to put 2 ballot questions at that time that actually raised tax rates, and our community overwhelmingly supported both. And so that was back in 2016. And so that allowed us to really start creating a long-term plan. So we started investing mainly in our high schools, but it was a $450 million bond when we had needs that were significantly above that. And so we've now created a long-term plan, and our board just approved 2 ballot questions for a total of $1.3 billion with a B for this November. But here's what I want everybody to know. Because, and really, again, Leo, thank you to your leadership in organizations like Pro-City Base, there has been a significant amount of investment in our district boundaries. And so, I used to make a joke that, when I first came to San Antonio, I had to travel north to see any building crane, any cranes that were construction cranes. And I would ask, like, why aren't there any cranes in my district? I see them everywhere. I see them in the north. And well, now, folks, I see cranes. I mean, there's cranes in downtown, there's cranes on Broadway Street, and there's so much development going on, and there's been so much development at Brook City Base. So our tax base now has grown to such an extent that going forward, we can actually put bonds on the ballot that will not impact tax rates, that your rates will not go up at all. And one of the things that, it's important to know is that right now, so let's say you own a house and you're paying taxes of $100 a year. First of all, my ballot questions will not affect your $100. And if you have to pay $105, it's not because that's not related at all to our ballot questions. That might be because your house is going up in value. But when your taxes go up by that $5, I literally collect those $5, and then the state deducts dollar for dollar from me those $5. And so in essence, I become a tax collector for the state. So any increases in taxes that any of our community have seen over the last few years have been really money that I've been actually collecting and giving right to the state. So including, so much of the investments that Leo, that you guys have made in Brook City Base, all that new tax revenue doesn't come directly to us. It really goes to the state. And so this is our opportunity to actually keep the money local. And so I just want to make sure that everybody knows that, but it allows us to finish and also tackle 36 projects, including buildings that have not had any renovations in the last 20 years. Including, by the way, CASMED is one of the buildings on there because we've been phasing in construction there, but I got to tell you this really cute story. So I have a 6-year-old who loves science. She loves science, and she's in our district. And right now she's in a dual language elementary school. And so actually at Irving. And one of the things she said to me, she said, Papa, I want you to put me in a school with science. And I say, well, Mika, when you get older, there's a school, CASMED, that's what it is. And so she made me promise that I'm going to take her on a tour of CASMED because, folks, for those of you who haven't seen it, we have a machine where you can actually see the insides in multiple layers of human beings or any animal you can imagine. So we can see the muscles, the organs, the skeleton. And then the machine is literally body size. Like it's really the students go around like they're doctors. And so it's a machine that medical schools have. And that's what we have at CASMED. And so it really is, and it's a dual language school. So again, we want to produce doctors and therapists that are bilingual because that's what our community needs. And the board there is actually doctors from South Texas. Many of them, the first that actually were the first bilingual doctors in the fields in some cases.
I'll tell you what, it's always inspiring when I walk the halls of the CASMED school to see the students and their faces and know they reflect the community from A to Z. and they're in there and pursuing already at the high school level the kinds of careers that will benefit our communities in South Texas, and doing it right from South San Antonio. It's just exciting, and it's always I get a little emotional, believe it or not, when I walk through those halls and I see and talk to students and they share their experiences and their dreams. It's just it gives me goosebumps and brings tears, happy tears, to me sometimes. And Roland, you've got some programs that have grabbed the headlines a couple of times, whether it's in robotics, I think is the one that I'm remembering in particular, and maybe even in the area of construction. But you want to pick any one of those programs that you might want to tell us a little bit about, that maybe Brooks can do a better job of working with you and partnering in the future, given that we have the kinds of employers that we have?
Well, what I'd like to speak to is some of the things Pedro's talking about, or things that we're all learning about, the multiple kinds of options that we can offer in redesigning or reimagining the way the school experience is created, but also the outcomes for students. And as I mentioned earlier, it's about advanced academic readiness, but it's also about employability. And so we too have a CAST school that we are opening this year with our inaugural group of students. Ours is CAST Lead. It's leadership in hospitality, tourism, retail, and e-commerce. And those are three sectors of the local economy, $14.5 billion. A little strained right now during COVID-19. But the reality of it is we're connecting kids to experiences that are not just within the four walls of the classroom, but are really applicable as it relates to connecting their passion, skills, and interests to credentials and ultimately outcomes that set them on their way for a great career in the local San Antonio area. And anything that we can do to design our school system around a partnership with workforce and economic development, I believe is very wise. In addition, as Pedro mentioned earlier, working together with the workforce and economic development folks in higher ed is even wiser. And in all of the things that we're trying to do, like SAISD, these mutually beneficial partnerships ultimately are going to benefit our kids, but all of our future in the county and in the city of San Antonio. So we're pretty excited about that.
Well, Roland and Pedro, you all probably both know that we're pretty proud of the Embassy Suites Hotel we have at Brooks, the only full-service hotel south of Commerce Street in San Antonio. And while we're proud of that, I look forward to the day where there's more than one. But we're really thrilled to have it. And as you were talking, Roland, remind me, Connie, was there a day this last year when I remember a group of students coming from East Central that participated in a day of shadowing at our Embassy Suites Hotel?
The San Antonio Works hosted Job Shadow Day, and we had several different students from East Central and SAISD that we were proud to host at the Embassy Suites at Brooks.
And so delighted to have them, Roland. I hope we can grow that. We've got 3 hotels on campus, and Brooks literally owns the Embassy Suites Hotel. We can work with you to make sure that those students have that experience right here in their own community. Okay? So listen, it is almost 6:25. Connie, I'm going to count on you to tell me when I need to hand it over to you. But before I do that, I want to make sure and give Pedro and Roland a final opportunity to really give a message to the parents of your students regarding where we are today, why their anxiety levels perhaps can come down a bit, and some hope for this coming school year. Pedro, you want to start with that?
Sure. So first of all, I want to just thank for the shout out that I saw for Mission Academy. So thank you to all of our parents. It's a wonderful school. I love that school. I love going to that building. I want all my buildings to look like that because it's just a beautiful campus. And so what I would say for all of our parents, especially our parents of younger children, give yourself some grace. Work with your teacher. Your teacher is there to be a partner for you. Don't try to be the teacher. I know it's hard for us, especially with younger children, because we're the first teachers, right, as parents, and so we always feel that responsibility of being their teachers. But and really for us, what I hope that our community sees is that our gradual phasing of children of 10% at a time really is an effort not only for safety and to get our children accustomed to our guidelines, but it's also to reduce the anxiety of both staff and our parents and our children. I really believe that right now, especially if all of us continue to practice, all the safety guidelines, our metrics are going to continue to improve. The other thing I would ask parents is please go get your flu shots. Get your children their flu shots because the symptoms of COVID and the flu are so similar, and we don't want to be misdiagnosing children that they might have COVID when it might be the flu. And we know that, flu season always hits us pretty hard in San Antonio. So flu shots are available now. Please get your flu shots. But again, work with us. And again, nothing's going to be more important than the safety of our staff and our children. But I know as a community, we're going to get through this together and we'll be stronger for it.
Thank you, Pedro. Roland?
Yeah, so similarly, safety is of the utmost importance, but there is a tremendous sense of urgency on all of our part, both in the school district and in the community, to ensure that our kids are served, that they are educated, and that we do so in a responsible manner. Everything that we're doing is an effort to get our kids back into school, but more importantly, to keep them in school. So as long as we can implement risk mitigation protocols that are reliable and consistent, that when we have the occasional encounter with COVID-19, the impact will be minimal, and we can continue to move forward in educating our children through this pandemic. And as Pedro said, not only are we super excited about what we've learned so far and the innovative things that we're now doing that we know are going to stand solid beyond COVID-19, we're all going to be better on the other side of this as a school district, as a community, and the future is bright.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. And again, on behalf of the Brooks Board, the Brooks community, the Brooks team, we really thank you for your time here to get the word out to our parents and our students. And I'm going to turn it back over to Connie and see what she wants us to do from here.
Sure. So we still have a few more minutes, and we do have some questions that are coming in through the feed. I'll start off with a question from the Brooks chairman of the board, which is Mr. Jim Campbell, and he's wondering if there's anything already underway, or how is it possible to assess whether there is a long-term academic impact from not learning in person.
Yes.
I'll open that up to both of you all.
Yeah, so we're actually doing assessments right now at home. We call them NWA MAP assessments that we're actually helping our parents. And just, and they're not high stakes. They're just really for us to get a sense of where children are at. I believe that the biggest challenges are with our younger children. I'm seeing our older children, actually, many of them are flourishing. And our academics are much stronger this fall than they were even in the spring because we just had more time to plan. And I believe that one of the positive things that I see is even as we return children in person, that our older students are going to benefit a lot just from having the technology and being able to even accelerate the learning. I think my biggest role is the younger children, and I do believe that we're going to have to really figure out how to accelerate, especially their literacy skills, which are so fundamental when they're young. And that's why we want to start in-person instruction with a focus on younger children because for me, they're the most at risk.
Yeah, I'll just add to that the research on remote learning is pretty consistent in that students, all students, quite frankly, are not going to achieve academically at the same rates as they would face to face. But in particular, as children are younger, it affects greater. As children who are already at risk or struggling begin to receive exclusively remote instruction, then those rates of academic decline accelerate. And so we know that face-to-face instruction has the greatest impact. We are learning that a blended, educational experience that is face-to-face, remote, anytime, any place, anywhere, with a lot of choice and autonomy built in for students might someday prove to be the most effective, but remote exclusively over time is detrimental for all kids.
Thank you. And another parent or one who has graduated a kiddo already has asked that she doesn't have school or kids in school anymore, but what can she do to help families and students during this time?
So I think, definitely, our foundation, as for example, has set up a campaign, and they're almost reached $1 million just to help us bridge the digital divide. And so there's many nonprofits right now that are all trying to support our community. And I'll tell you, one thing that I love about San Antonio is that we have so many organizations that are on the ground, working to, we have families that have been hit with COVID, who've lost their jobs, and they're getting them food, getting them gift cards. So there's just, just a lot of organizations that are trying to help right now, like the Boys and Girls Club, the YMCA, communities in schools that we partner with, Big Brothers Big Sisters. So Roland and I, we work with all these organizations, and like I said, they're a godsend for us. Catholic Charities, they're a godsend for us, and so I would just say, help these organizations as much as you can, especially if you can volunteer. There's just a lot of people in need right now, and our community is hurting.
I'll add to that too, that we know there's going to be families who just don't feel comfortable sending their kids to school face to face at any point during this year, and they're going to need some support. And I feel like as a community where there are folks like yourself who maybe have some time and some availability, that if we could come together and participate in safe learning environments where we could help supervisor proctor students to follow a routine daily schedule, to get connected and to provide some feedback back, feedback to teachers about the things that are working for the children on the other end or not. That for even those students who end up choosing remote all year long, they're going to need some adult guidance and support. And again, particularly the young ones. And so any volunteers, any organizations like churches, I can imagine churches standing up education ministries for those in the neighborhoods surrounding the church, or for those who are members of the church. Anything we can do to get kids who otherwise may not have support all day long because they chose remote only for all the right reasons in their household, they're going to need some support.
Thank you. And we know that this is very new for all of us. It's uncharted territory. And so things are evolving what seems like almost on a daily basis. And so how do parents, students, and beyond stay up to date with the latest information as different dates are changing and rules and restrictions?
So we're going to have regular town halls. And so one of the commitments we made is we're going to have a town hall on September 16th. And so we'll have regular town halls where we will continue to update parents so that as we're moving up in the levels and we're phasing in more children, and we're going to send written communication also on a regular basis. It is, Roland said this earlier, it's a little tricky. Metro Health is still working on how they display their metrics. It's a little confusing. There's metrics for the community and there's metrics for the schools. But you can always go to our website, and we always have the latest information on what level we're in. But count on our commitment just to be, like I said, and thank you for this venue as well, Connie and Leo, because it's these venues that allow us to reach more people. Because we're a big city, but we're a small town at the same time. But we're still, and so just getting out to everybody. So I know Roland and I, we've been very active on panels and on the media. So we're definitely going to make sure that our family's in the know.
Yeah, and I also echo Pedro in regards to thanking you guys for putting this together. I have certainly found that a live conversation with the community has been the most impactful. I here in East Central, we've done it weekly for the better part of the last 2 months, and we've in essence given our families an opportunity to have real-time dialogue, ask real-time questions, have those answered, and get feedback, quite frankly. For us to consider as we continue to evolve what we're doing to better serve them. At that, I have a Facebook Live Friday, and the primary topic is September 8th and beyond. And so we're going to be talking about what that's going to look like. We're going to be talking about what they can expect between now and then in terms of our communication and interaction. And then again, hear from them so that we make sure that we're thinking about everything before we launch our next set of decisions.
Thank you. And thank you both for taking the time to be a part of our Ask Brooks series. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you to your staff, your teachers, your students. You all are doing an amazing job. I think this is a testament to having the right gentleman in the right seats at the right time. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you all.
Thank you, gentlemen.
And for our viewers, we hope that you enjoyed this live stream event. If you have any follow-up questions, our contact information is now up on the screen and we will be following up. Our next Facebook Live event is scheduled for next Thursday, which is September 3rd, Thursday, September 3rd, and we will be talking about mental health and coping during COVID-19. And so once again, we'll be taking your questions live, so please submit them in advance. Until next time, we look forward to seeing you on Thursday, September 3rd. Thank you for tuning in.